So our workshop this evening is, I have to thank Regina for kindly travelling up from Dundalk, and she was at the top of our hit list, as the saying goes, when we had our moments of truth to do a workshop. And the reason being we asked Regina is because Regina has won numerous competitions at numerous levels in evaluations and table topics. And table topics is probably one of the best table topic responses, and we may get her some time to do a workshop on table topic response. So Regina Burns. Regina.
Thank you very much, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation. Top of the hit list, great. Okay, that's a good reputation to have.
This is an order.
There was two things in your introduction at the beginning where you said, it's all about doing good evaluations. And I thought, oh, great, Stephen, because actually what it says is how to do great evaluations. So I'm showing far more ambition than you were expecting this evening. But then the other bit was, let's change all your words. So you're not going to say I and me and all that. The whole thing is based on I, me, and all of that. So, developing our evaluation skills. That's what I want to talk about this evening. And very much on the basis of developing them, because I think we're all developing them all the time. Doing evaluations isn't easy. It's relatively straightforward in some ways, but we don't find it easy. So this evening is about developing our skills. Okay, so see, don't talk about yourself, and here we go. One of the reasons I joined Toastmasters was so that I would be able to talk about myself. So I'm just going to say a little bit. For work, I am a leadership coach. I've been in Toastmasters since 2010, and I joined Dundalk. I've been a past president and a PR, and you know how it is. You get on the committee, and somehow or other, they won't let you go. So that's really, and I shouldn't have said maybe workshop facilitator, you're going to go, so you do this in normal days as well. My goodness, that's putting pressure on myself. I didn't even think about that. So, and yes, I have won some competitions with evaluations. But what I want to do here this evening is talk about feedback in the general sense, because it was interesting you mentioned it earlier, because evaluation is about giving feedback. So the skills that we learn in Toastmasters doing evaluation can help us in all kinds of areas, about giving feedback and about getting feedback. And also I will touch a wee bit on the whole kind of contest and structuring it. And I do have some things that kind of make myself do to show kind of the process I go through when I'm doing an evaluation, because I think it's helpful to know what is the process, how is it you do it, how is it you structure it, and that might be helpful for context. So, guide to doing great evaluations, Stephen. Not settling for good here, we're going for great. And the reason is I'm really very passionate about giving feedback and getting it. So there was a study done on education, and it said the most powerful single thing that makes a difference is feedback. And that was a huge education study that showed that for students, for anybody learning, that actually getting feedback about what you're doing really is the thing that makes the difference. So from my mind, it's crucial to Toastmasters. We all think about the getting up and doing speeches, the table topics, all that kind of thing, but really how we learn mostly is about getting feedback from other people. How other people, we don't know how other people see us. We don't know how we come across. We're walking down the street, somebody can probably tell more about us than we can tell about ourselves some of the time. So the great opportunity in Toastmasters is about being able to get that feedback and to be able to learn from it and to get it from a varied audience. You're not going to please all of the people all of the time, but it's great to know what's hitting, what's missing, what's not working, what's connecting with people. And the more you get, the more feedback you're getting, the more you learn. So I just wanted to put us in very, very good company in terms of getting feedback. So Bill Gates said we all need people who will give us feedback, that's how we improve. And Sheryl Sandberg, the CEO of Facebook, that the most that she has learned in her career is when people have pointed out things that I didn't see. So when there's a video of this, I will see the things that I don't know that I do. Some of the feedback I got in the beginning was, and I'm always watching for it, was how I looked like I was conducting an orchestra. So, it was great when somebody said to me, see that thing where you do your hands clasping in and out? Don't do that anymore. And I went, oh, really? That's something I do. I said to somebody last week, I was trying to stop twiddling with the buttons on his jacket. No idea that we do it. These are all things that we kind of do automatically, isn't it? They are habits that we have. And any kind of feedback we get that tells us those gives us a great opportunity to change our behaviours. Okay, so what is feedback? So, appreciation, where we kind of say all the good things, we say what's really good, we acknowledge with people, we connect, thank them, so we appreciate when we're giving feedback. Or we can, we can give people a bit of advice, a bit of coaching, where we help them understand things, we help expand their horizons about things. But the crucial part about Toastmasters is the evaluation. The bit that, for a lot of us, we're uncomfortable with, is that we do need to rate it. There's a standard. When you stand up here to do a speech, the idea is that there's certain objectives. There's things that you're trying to do. And a really good evaluation will tell you whether or not you achieved those objectives. Whether the expectation of what you were going to do and what you did were aligned, or the quality of what you did. And gives it a value. Now, I don't necessarily mean a percentage or whatever, just put a value. This was an excellent speech. This was a speech that needs improving. There's a value attached to it. And that's really important for our learning. That's the value that we really get from the feedback and the evaluation we get from Toastmasters. So why do we find it so hard to give feedback? Who loves doing evaluations in this room? Da-da, da-da. 1, 2, 3, okay, 4, yay, and me, 5. Why do we not like to give feedback? Why do we not like doing evaluations?
You may not want to offend someone through a comment.
Yeah.
I think some people don't know how to give, or feel that they don't know how to give feedback in a way that is appropriate, really.
Yeah. But it's almost like we express an opinion. So that bit about we don't feel qualified, or it's just our opinion. What else? What makes you reluctant to do it?
Your own feedback is being judged by others.
Okay. So what you think of what somebody else
Yeah.
thinks is then being judged. Yeah. Okay, that's an interesting one. Yeah, too. Anything else? What holds you back?
I think it's really important getting feedback that you know the person and know how to give the feedback to them, and I think if you don't know someone very well, that can be difficult, and some people might struggle with that.
Okay.
Yes, you're scared of really criticizing someone too much and making them feel bad rather than actually encouraging them.
So what are the kind of traps that we fall into when we've got all of that going on in our heads?
Playing safe.
Yeah. So quite often we have the far too positive, so really afraid of criticising. So it's interesting how criticism, we had criticism I think said 3 times, but what we're talking about is evaluation. But we hear criticism, we hear that it's going to be, it is constructive criticism, but that we're being critical and being critical is a bad thing. So we play it safe. What does playing it safe look like?
Not really saying what you truly believe or what you truly thought of the speech.
Yeah.
I don't think playing safe actually does the speaker any value or the evaluator themselves, because you're not actually improving the speaker by not giving them the feedback.
So this is something then that happens. So I'm going to talk about is the gap when we don't do a good evaluation. So when we say something like, oh, you delivered a great speech, so that's that kind of glossing over, not really saying anything, and you refer to the objectives, let's say. So somebody's sitting there and they go, okay, God, I did it, God, it was okay, that's great. Phew. But what you're meaning is, you're a good speaker, but you didn't really do what you were supposed to do. And what happens? The speaker doesn't develop. Yeah. I did an evaluation on somebody probably 2 years ago, and I hadn't ever met them before. I had been away from the club for a couple of months, and I came back in and somebody was on their maybe 3rd or 4th speech, I think. Good speaker, delivered an interesting speech, but didn't in any way meet the objectives. I'd almost missed the point that there was a set of objectives to deliver. And I was doing the evaluation, and I think the expectation was that it was really interesting, and he was very enthusiastic, and there was lots of really positive things, but he didn't fulfill the objectives. He didn't do what the speech was meant to do. And it was one of those times when I think people at first were kind of shocked by what I said. Said, all of these things were great, but you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And when you don't do what you're supposed to do, you've missed out on the learning. You've missed out on the chance to develop those skills. So if it says, you know, this is about body language, and you give a really interesting speech, but you don't do anything with body language, or if it's about using words in a particular way, you know, the objectives that are there. I'm not so clear on the pathways once around, but it's the same thing, isn't it? We're supposed to, on each time, build on the skills we've got before and develop to the next level. But if you're not prepared to give somebody that judgment, that evaluation, and actually say you didn't really do what you were supposed to do, what you said you were going, it says you were supposed to do, then they miss the chance of developing those skills. And perhaps they go through doing similar speeches each time, doing the same things, but not actually developing something new. And that, to my mind, is the crucial part about Toastmasters, that if we give a really good evaluation, somebody gets that, okay, I need to do this differently. And on that occasion, I said to the person, this was a great speech, but actually I think you should go back and do this one again. And do the one that will meet the objectives. And he said many times afterwards how valuable that was, because it stopped him in his tracks and made him go, okay, if I'm serious about developing my skills, I need to do this. So that was, in some ways, a risky evaluation for me to do. I didn't know him, but I felt that this was a fair and good evaluation to give. And what it did was say, okay, that was his time then, that he developed according to the programme and learned more, because from then on he was so aware of the objectives and making the speech work in that way. So look at the other things that can happen where we say things like, now this is one of the traps that people fall into. If you're, one of the things people don't like is evaluating somebody that they think is really good. Yeah. So we get that whole thing. You're a very experienced speaker and you did an amazing speech and it was wonderful. I can't think of a single thing to say about it. So if you're an experienced speaker, you think, well, it didn't make much impact with that. Yeah. But that's the evaluator struggling to give feedback. And the speaker doesn't get valuable feedback. No matter who you are in the audience, what you have to offer is really useful. You know, if you only come in the door on the first night, I'm not saying that you're going to stand up and do the evaluation, but your opinion matters. And that's something I've seen, you know, less experienced Toastmasters fall into that trap of thinking they can't give feedback to somebody who's more experienced. I'm not at your level, so I don't know. You know, I saw some very, very experienced speaker last week in another place who, when doing his speech, looked to the floor an awful lot. And it just felt like it was a habit and he was doing it. And, you know, but lots of people said, oh, there was nothing we could say. It's a great opportunity when there's an experienced speaker to really observe. Not to get caught up in, they're so experienced, they've got it all right, I could never do it. Now, people say, I couldn't do it, so I can't offer you something. Your opinion really matters, and whatever you've got to say will be really helpful. So just do it.
Regina, can I give you an example of that? Somebody
Please.
told me once at Toastmasters, there was an experienced Toastmaster who was a paid speaker. And he went back to his own club, and it was a newbie who was actually evaluating him. And the newbie wrote down, your socks are too bright. Now, when you think about it, your mom's a paid speaker. Says every time you move, I catch a glimpse of your socks and I forget to bring on in the story. Your mom thought one of the best pieces of evaluations that he got.
Absolutely.
And the rest of the club says, oh, we can't say that to him. He's this,
He's that. And that's the thing about not allowing that to happen. You know, that was a very experienced speaker that I noticed was looking to the ground. Or somebody else recently who had their glasses on their head, though I have been guilty of that myself. And the reflection was coming off the lights and it was affecting my appreciation of the story. So that was my feedback. My feedback was, take the glasses off your head. You know, these are really important things. Your socks, what's on your head, you know, particularly when you get into that stage. So there isn't anything that you can offer that either isn't valuable or could be valuable. So really offering what you've got to say, because it's so helpful. Now the other extreme is the bit where people go, okay, and I've seen some evaluations where, let's say, there's somebody on their first or second speech and they get an evaluation that's as if they should be able to do everything. So they get you didn't use vocal variety and you need to move more across the floor and you need to, you know, so if you're evaluating somebody, to be really clear, but where are they at? and giving more positives when somebody's starting, because we can put people off. We can put people off when we see that they've got a lot of potential, and we go, do this and do that and do. So our evaluations do need to be thoughtful and considered for who it is that's there. Okay, so where does it go wrong? Well, too generic. What's your phrase that you're using for that? Playing it safe. Yeah. Too generic, far too general. Yeah. Almost like a bit of a formula. The other thing that I think happens with the too generic is they kind of go chronologically. So let's say somebody's up here and they're doing a speech on the first day at school, and then the evaluator does that. When you started at school when you were 4, and you went to, you know, that one, and then your teacher was Miss Murphy, and then, so actually what are we doing there? Regurgitating the speech. Yeah. It's one of the things I think it's really important to, because the person's just given us the speech. We don't need to give them back what they've just given us. Yeah, and that can be when we're just too focused on you're following the speech. And I'll get to a wee bit about the kind of process of doing the evaluation, but just not following exactly and being so focused on the content, because then it's, well, when you said you were in Miss Murphy's class, it reminded me of that, the way you said it. So it's the how. It's not getting so obsessed with the content that you end up regurgitating the content, or that we think we're really valuing somebody when we let them know just how well we were listening, because we know everything they said, but that's not it. What impact was it having on us is really the most important thing. Along with that is the too much, just the, when you're doing an evaluation, and you've got maybe quite a lot of thoughts about it, and there's a lot you could say, you can't say it all. The same as when you're doing a speech. Yeah? We have to edit down, we have to cut out what we're going to say. The same with an evaluation. You can't say everything. Get to the stuff that you really want to say, the stuff that could be really important, the stuff that could be helpful. That's our responsibility as evaluators, to say, I've noticed all this stuff, what's the most important things I can say when I'm saying it? So that we're not trying to cram everything in. The hedging it, the kind of not quite prepared to say it because it might be critical. And so we hedge around it. We talked about some of the evaluation contests, and I remember one at the district level, and the person who was doing the speech made a joke in it that I really didn't like. Really was quite uncomfortable with it. And this was a few years ago. I hedged it. You know, I said the things that I liked, said the things that I felt could need improving, and I should have stood there and said, and the joke that you included, I really didn't like, it didn't work for me. What's so terrible about that? What's so terrible about saying I didn't like your joke?
I suppose it's critical, isn't it? And it's not a critique.
Yeah. But I didn't like your joke. I think it kind of spoiled the speech for me. Yeah? Now, I didn't say it, and I have worked at finding a way of saying when I don't like something, when I say actually, you know, and I've done it since. We say, do you know what, you could, for me, if you'd left that out, it would have been better. Now that's not a critical, because none of us are liked by everybody, do you know. And humour is such a personal thing, isn't it? Do you know, but would it have been better for that person to know that that joke didn't work for me, and mightn't for other people? That's better to know than not know. But I didn't say it, I hedged around it. Yeah. So it's that bit about being prepared to say what we're thinking. We tend to think that if we're going to tell the truth, it's bad, it's blunt. So we associate the truth blunt, with rude, with all of those sorts of things. It's just the truth. I didn't think it was funny. That didn't work for me. Yeah. You got to laugh from other people, but just not me. But it spoiled my evaluation. I hedged around it, and I realised that again, I hadn't offered that person that perspective or that feedback that would have been helpful. And what about the two positive ones? What about the ones where we tell somebody that their speech was amazing and wonderful and incredible and, you know, so fantastic? Well, you know, what would we all doing here learning if it's that? Now, I'm not saying not to be positive, but it's sometimes just being careful that we're not so overloading it, so overloaded with positives that we miss the bits where we're saying that bit worked really well, and why it worked really well. I love the way you did that. I love the way you moved across the room when you were saying that. It really got me. Yeah. So you're offering examples, or you're offering how it impacted you, rather than just it was amazing and positive and wonderful and fantastic. Yeah. So it's really showing.
That one there mostly, I think, is the one that both people don't learn anything out of.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't gain anything.
Yeah. Because after you've heard it's wonderful and whatever, what yeah. And to some extent, we are all wired really negative, isn't it? Which is why we try to protect, ourselves and others, because we, that bit that, if there was a, if in the room tonight, you all say it was really good, but one person says to me, I really didn't like the way you did that. Not a helpful feedback, let's say. Just that's the one we zone in on, isn't it? That's the one we remember. So when we are giving our feedback, when we put ourselves forward for it, number one, we're looking for that for it to be framed in a positive way, but still saying what we've got to say. But yeah, the too positive just doesn't work for anybody. Okay. So evaluating. Let's talk about doing the evaluating. Okay, so this is a kind of simple one. You want to be aware at the beginning. How did the speech begin? Did it get my attention? Did I like it? What was the body of it? And how did it close? So sometimes when we're getting started, that's a really good way of doing it. So we're aware of those kind of ways of thinking. But what I want to take you through now, I've seen people take a few notes, but I'll send these out. I want to take you through a kind of what I'm calling my six-step process, which I never really knew I had until I was doing evaluations one time. I remember in Newry, and I was kind of doing it, and you went, "What is that? How do you do that?" So it focused my mind to say this is the process, and I'm going to give you out a wee bit of a handout just to see if that might be helpful with it. And if anybody was going to give me feedback, then I'm rattling with that. I'm going to take it away. Okay. So step one, preparation. So for preparing for listening for a speech first, whether this is at a contest or in the club. Who is it that's doing it? What are the objectives? Because certainly if it's a test, that's really important. What level is that person at? So what am I expecting? What's going on? And if it's a contest, remembering at that point, I can do this. This is good, yeah, because we all people get nervous about the evaluation, whether it's a contest or get nervous about the evaluation. So being positive, I can do this. This is good. Okay. So preparation to me is key for all of these things. Being prepared. So you're sitting comfortably. You know what you're doing. You know who it is. You know what's going on. That puts us in the very best position to do a good evaluation. So the next step, let's pay attention and really put ourselves in a position where we are. What are we seeing? What are we hearing? What are you feeling? Is it matching with what you're expecting? So you're tuning into yourself as well as watching and listening to the person. What is it doing for you? Because that's where the value of the evaluation, so we don't fall into the, here's what you told us, I remember your words. What you're looking for is what's the impact of the words, what's the impact of the person, what's it doing for you? What are you seeing, what are you hearing? Okay, so I know there's lots of different ways of doing evaluations or different sheets or whatever it is. My brain goes kind of like a mind map, but use something that works for you. One of the difficulties sometimes when we're doing an evaluation in a club is, it's up at the top of the page and you work your way down and, so it's kind of forcing you into a chronological thing. But if you're going to do a feedback or an evaluation, work out what works for you. Yeah. For me, a mind map, letting things go, oh, I like that, I didn't like that, So that allows me to kind of gather my thoughts about it.
Okay, it might be interesting to see what the different stages of evaluations are. What way to take them down, maybe a bit else. That might be interesting, what way other members
Yeah,
do theirs. Anybody want to?
share your,
I think on one of the previous workshops I spoke about the sort of sandwich
Yeah.
approach
Yeah.
to giving evaluations. There's like different layers. You give something negative, and then you repeat the negative, and then you bring into a positive and how that would maybe improve your speech. So you sort of identify it, and then you sort of explain how it affects your speech, how it would maybe make it better, and then the fact that it's
And in terms of the delivery, that's a good one to do. I'm going to
Because I know I sort of put good and improve on two sides. I mean, let's say
Yep.
what I think's good, and then I just take those points from there and try, and that's the way I do it.
Yep.
It suits me. Just then, I was curious to see what way other people.
I know I would do the opposite to Colin because I call it shit sandwich actually.
Yeah,
But I
positive
think
first.
that can be very condescending to people because they know what you're saying. I'm going to say something good and I'm going to say what I really mean and then I'm going to say something good to end it. But I think it's really important just to be honest and to have like a coaching approach with it so that you're, and I think Regina, what you said earlier about what you were thinking about that person with the joke, but then the way you said it in a much more positive way, like I would have left that out. I think things like that are very good.
Yeah.
That, you know, 'cause
Yeah.
it's positive, it's helping, but you're still being completely honest about
Yeah.
what you're thinking.
Well, I can give you a losing formula if that's any good. So up until now, what I try to do when I am doing an evaluation is I try and split the speech into 3 areas. The feedback I would give would be, first of all, on the stance of the person, their body movement, their eye contact, hand movement, stage presence. That. Second, then I would look at the actual content of the speech itself, whether they were the use of the words, the structure of the speech, whether they use the power of 3, things like that there. And then the last area would be, did I actually get anything out of it? Was there any sort of emotional engagement to me? But it doesn't work. I'm just saying, or else I just don't deliver it well enough. It should work, but it doesn't.
Now, I'm not going to tell you that you would use this all the time, but I did decide to kind of gather a wee bit of a kind of thought. If your hand goes out, it's the idea of, first of all, rather than, we try to think about how we're going to deliver the evaluation, but first of all, I'd really like you to be thinking about, what is it doing for you? Back to that point, what is it doing for you? Should be enough to go. Great. So you'll see from this, I'm saying, okay, the start is really important. So this was almost like me forcing to take my mind map and capture it. So what's happening at the start? So you might just jot down a couple of words. Strong start, interesting, saw the body language. Then what am I seeing? And that allows you to go for the what's happening. The person's moving across the place there, not they're stuck in the corner. So what am I seeing? I'm seeing somebody really enjoying it, I'm seeing somebody do eye contact. So that question I think really helps to do that. So what am I hearing? And that allows you to go, well, am I hearing different vocal variety? Am I, those sorts of things. But I really like to keep things simple and real. So rather than those sorts of terms, am I seeing vocal variety? I know I used about vocal variety, abuse and floor. Rather than those questions, the first questions are, what am I seeing? What am I hearing? What am I feeling? What's it doing here to me? And what would make it better? So it allows you to connect all those things together. What happened to the conclusion? And then, what's my conclusion? My conclusion was good. Yeah. So for me, what I really like is to be absorbed in the speech. Now, if I'm doing an evaluation, I need to be making notes. But I don't want to be thinking during the speech about how I'm going to deliver. I just want to be in the experience of the speech. And that's why those questions work for me, because they are, what's going on? What am I seeing? What's working?
I think that's an excellent point, because then you're forming your own story in your routine.
Yes.
So you're going to do your own authentic self, where it's not, we've seen competitions where some people have the evaluation done before the speaker finished.
Absolutely.
And then there's brutal like that. There's,
Yeah. There was a judge at one point last year, and I won't say what club, but actually the evaluators, they were evaluating the same speech, but they had a couple of phrases that they were using, and you knew that they were phrases that they had learned almost before they got there, if you know what I mean, that sounded impressive. This bit where we think that we have to sound, to my mind, gobbledygook management speak bullshit. You don't need that. What am I feeling? When I heard your speech, I really enjoyed it. You made me feel like I was on that Caribbean island. It was amazing. We don't need to say some kind of convoluted way of, I can't even think of them because I don't like using them. Do you know what I mean? And that's why for me, what am I seeing, what am I feeling, what am I hearing? And you can say you use the power of 3, whatever, but you're seeing it happen and you're capturing it. So for me, there's 2 parts. Well, there's more than 2 parts, but the first part is this bit about being absorbed in the speech, and that's what I really like to do. And particularly if you're doing it, you know, if you were doing your evaluation then, you know, you're delivering an evaluation, then okay, you've got to then kind of gather your thoughts. This is me then, gather your thoughts. Let's see where is you have it in a structure, yeah. So this will give you a bit like the sandwich. You know, there's all kinds of versions of it, but that I like to give an overall bit first of all. You know, this was a really interesting speech that made me really think about, you know, how I will walk down the street in the future. So you start off with that. You start off with almost like a summary thing. Then, this is what I really liked about it, and why I really liked it. This is what worked, and why I saw it working. This is what could improve it. You know, so you have there's a kind of structure that you're working to, but it's again based on having drawn out your own experience of what you enjoyed, what you appreciated, what worked for you, and then kind of gathering it into that. So I did, actually. Here's one I prepared earlier again. Seem to have lots of those. But again, you know, what I'm saying to you is you can develop your own process, your own thing. This works for me in terms of a structure. And the earlier point I made about if there's a set of objectives that you work to the objectives. So even if somebody has delivered a really good speech, but it didn't meet the objectives, I believe as Toastmasters we have a responsibility to say it didn't quite do
So
it.
whenever you're doing your evaluation, would you set out in this kind of structure then? You know,
That's kind of what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's kind of what I use.
Okay,
Yeah.
But Regina, you're still very fluid on your evaluations.
Yes.
When I've seen you,
Yes.
and they come across really natural, as if there is no structure to it. But this is
my invisible structure.
yeah,
It's not like you're not writing out word
it's
for
not
word. It's just
written,
kind of
it's not written stuff.
So for me, like that kind of mind map thing, so when I've known so I'm not writing it out, you know, I've seen people do that frantic thing of, you know, write everything out from the beginning to the end, and then you get to the end, and by that stage, you're just gathering the content. And that means then you end up throwing in and you use the floor, and you did the whatever, and you miss the thing that it isn't only about the content, it's hugely about the delivery, and hugely about what was I feeling. Do you know, what do we want to do in terms of speaking? We want to entertain, or we want to make somebody laugh, or we want to get you to think about something. So we don't want to be so absorbed in the evaluation thing that we are not experiencing the experience, because that's what the person doing the speech really wants. So that's that. So for me, there's 2 phases. There's that bit. There's the how am I in it, and then okay. So now, what do I want to say about it? What do I want to tell the person who did the speech? And because I've captured some words, I think that's why I can get the flow, because the words are there, not the full sentences. So I'm able to say this is how I felt, but this is what I really liked, because I've been totally absorbed in the speech. So then the delivery. To the person, you know, but I like to kind of broaden it out to the wider audience as well. So I think when I was doing the first, they said talk to the person, and I would talk to the person, and I would talk to the person, and I would talk to the person. It's almost too intense, isn't it? So I said thank you for your speech, that was really interesting. And it wasn't great the way, you know, the person did this. So you're getting that balance of directly to you and to the audience. So not a replay of the speech. I'm obviously going with that one a lot. I think that's really important. Don't do that. Own your evaluation. It is your opinion. We don't need to do the bit where we go, well, it's just me, and I just think, and I don't know, and I don't have a lot of experience, and you're a much better speaker than me, and you know, come out here. Own your evaluation. Own what you've got to say. And I believe that we can be clear and be kind at the same time. You know, for me, the quote that I always use is the true genius of communication is to be totally honest and totally kind at the same time. You know, we can do it. We've all turned up here to learn, so getting something honest back, I think, is really, really good for us. So don't try and put everything in there. So you can have a follow-up. You can share more details directly with the person. I often do that. You can write up the form then, or whatever it is. And then that bit about, Stephen, you made that point earlier as well, reflect on what you've learned yourself, because doing an evaluation is a tremendous opportunity for learning. You know, evaluating, getting your thoughts, bringing it out, delivering it. So, and, you know, I think in a normal meeting place, it's the general evaluator who may say something then about your delivery. But other than this evening, or well, on other occasions, but if I'm delivering anything at a Toastmaster meeting, I would normally ask somebody to either watch for something for me or to tell me something. So I'm always looking for feedback. Okay, I'm conscious of time. Let me see. This is shut up quite soon, so that's great. Okay, so that actually, you don't need to do that. That's all of the points that I've already given you. So the balance of recommendations. This is something that we sometimes struggle with. If somebody is at the very early stage, we're at the ABC, we're just setting out, I would say the 80-20 rule there. So 80% of it is positive. You know, really did very well, you know, well done for standing up, well done for getting here, but always something, but relative to where they're at. Yeah. As somebody develops, kind of 70-30. When we know what we're good at, it's good to hear it. The more specific it is, the better. But also that bit about making sure that you are offering a recommendation, are offering something that you think would improve it. Not a whole kind of, you know, when you talked about that thing, you could have talked about 10 other things, but kind of what was it? What's the one wee thing that they could have done differently? Or your socks, or fiddling with your arm, or, you know, your bracelet was really annoying you. Something that gives somebody something to work with. And then the more experienced you are, I think at that point, the more you want the feedback, the more you're able for it, because you kind of know what you're good at. And it's some of the littler things then that you can make the improvement. So, yeah, giving that feedback at that point, the more experience. But you can check, that's one of the things you can do in your preparations, check with the person. You know, is there anything specific that they want? Is there something particular? You know, so that the evaluation is of the highest possible value to them. Any other questions? Just now, kind of just on time. So, what we're going to do is have a wee break and tabletops and things, isn't it? And then Donald's going to do a speech. And what I would like to do is for you to do this kind of process. You don't have to follow my process exactly, you know, but actually developing your own process. Give that one a try while the speech is ongoing. And let's then maybe see if we could do some kind of really interesting group evaluation.
Well, we'll do that in we'll do the group ones.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then we'll come back in the end.
That's brilliant.
All right, thanks very much.
We're going to have a few topics, and then Donald, as Regina has said, is going to do a test speech, and then we're going to evaluate it. We're going to evaluate it probably singly or a group, whatever Regina's in charge of. A Navy SEAL said about the benefits of making your bed in the morning. Have you ever seen that on Facebook or YouTube? Look it up, about this Navy SEAL, about the importance of making your bed in the morning. What is important in the morning for you, for your day to go well? Do you get dressed? Do you not get dressed? Ready?
The most important thing in my morning is food. It's the very first thing that comes to mind the second I am conscious. It's not because my breakfast is varied at all. In fact, it's the exact same thing, Monday to Friday. A giant bowl of porridge. It's literally back to porridge for me when I go back to work from a holiday. The reason that it's so important to me is that as soon as I get hungry, if I have not had sufficient breakfast, if it gets to 11, half 11 in the morning and I start to feel my stomach growling, that immediately my brain is switched off and I'm not being productive in the slightest. All I'm thinking about is when is lunchtime.
thing for me in the morning to set myself up for the day is to get up. I was talking to Donal about this in the car on the way down, is to get up at the right time. Because if I try and get up between 7 and 8, I feel dreadful. But I've started back into an exercise regime that I used to do before, and I'm waking up at 5:30, 6:30, and I literally can just bounce out of bed then, and I feel great all day. I might be tired by 9:30 at night, but then at the weekend, if I want to lie in to maybe 9:30, 10, I'm okay then too, but I just can't seem to get up at that 7 to 8, so I think it's tiring for me.
And then we'll go on to another topic.
So we're going a long way to come to Mr. Focusmaster. I actually had a bit of a rough time in the past few weeks because I was actually off sick for a while, so I was off work, and then you know when you're off work and you don't really do much, and then you kind of get cabin fever, and then like you hate life, and then you just, I was just in one of those situations when you just feel like you're in like a sticky vest kind of thing. So I was like, right, okay, how can I actually like get myself out of that situation? And I actually started doing something in the morning that I actually decided to keep doing every morning because I actually found it quite useful for me. And that was just to list at least 3 things that I'm looking forward to during my day. And I actually found that I've got a lot of lovely things to look forward to. And even today, this morning, I wrote things like, I actually can't wait to just, clear out my inbox and actually get that weight off, my shoulders. Or like, I actually can't wait to get my breakfast. And also I listed being here at Toastmasters, and I can see all of you. So I really recommend you doing that if you ever kind of feel not in a great place. So.
Personality traits or physical traits that you would change about yourself. I try to work on my bluntness. My physical trait, I would probably get my nose straightened. So. Dermot?
Yep. So,
The beard.
no. That's the first thing I do in the morning, sort of beard out. No, actually, what I find is what I'm working on at the moment actually is emotional agility. So the ability to, when someone says to you, as someone said to me the other day, well, how are you going to make a success of that? And I said to him, well, how would you make a success of it? And it was before I would have just went like into a boom, I'm maybe just going to handle this in tunnel vision. And I might have exploded, but I probably would have just like really handled it in a different way. But it was the ability to maybe sense the tension, or being able to redirect it and sort of throw it back, which then allows you to focus on the details and sort of take this thing out of it. So that's actually one of the things that I'm working on and changing right now. So if you want to critique me right now, go for it. Just
Maggie again, and then we will go to our speaker.
Mr. Toastmaster, so one personality trait that I really, really suffer from, and it's a terrible, terrible condition called chronic lateness. I am the person who is always late, unfortunately, at least not too late. I wouldn't keep you long, like probably, half an hour to 45 minutes, but I would probably be late for a good 10 to 15 minutes. So that's one personality trait that I'm really not proud of, and I'm really, really working hard on improving. So
Somebody can remember one not to go this evening.
I guess, believe it or not, tonight was actually not my fault. I was actually ready to go. It was actually someone else's fault, but I'm not. Most of the other times, yes.
Just remember responsibility.
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
So we're now going to use those tips that Regina gave us, and Donald's going to do a speech. What time scale is on it, Donald? 5 to 7?
Yeah.
Don't know the title of it. Donald O'Neill.
Excuse me, don't you need timekeeper, Arlene?
No, you're right. I should be fine to go. Bring up here, whichever it is. This is a speech that I actually delivered a couple of years ago, and I've rewritten it to bring it up to date. Because if I made the references to what we wrote a couple of years ago, it wouldn't make any sense. So, okay. Actually, nobody's wearing their seatbelts, which is a wee bit worrying. But anyway, fellow Toastmasters, have any of you noticed the proliferation of so-called wind turbines about the countryside? I mean, they're popping up everywhere. You know, one pops up, a week later there's another one. After about a month they have managed to breed, and there's maybe 7 of them have grown up all around them, all over the place. A couple of weeks ago, I'd gone for a walk with Amanda in Drumcura Forest, and I'd looked up County Down at about a 45-degree angle, and I managed to count 28 of these machines up there. And then I turned round to the west, probably a 35-degree angle, I counted another 17. They're all over the place. Now, maybe you think they're a good thing. Maybe you think they're pretty, they're nice. Maybe you think that they are developing green energy. This is a good thing. And, you know, maybe you're right. Who knows? But maybe, just maybe, one of these days, they're all going to start turning at the same time. And they're going to get faster, and faster, and faster, and faster, until they're going around so fast you can't even see the blades. And the next thing with a big, we're going to take off. And Ireland is going to be a drone. We'll all be flying about on the drone. Now the thing about the drone, fellow Toastmasters, is the person who's flying the drone is never on the drone. The person who's controlling the drone is remote. It could be like the drones in Afghanistan. Maybe there's a British officer in a bunker in Berkshire flying our drone. Or maybe he's one of Putin's pilots from Pichenko flying the drone. Or maybe it's less sinister, there's just a renegade Remainer from Rathlin flying the drone. But the next question is, where are we going? I mean, hopefully we're flying south, because it's warmer down there and we get some good weather. And in fact, that made me think that possibly Boris Johnson's behind this. And the idea is that he wants to fly the border problem out of sight and out of mind. So we're going to be flying south, and we're going to land maybe in the Maldives or Sri Lanka. And of course the DUP are going to think it's young Ian who's got another junket. Yeah, wow, we got a holiday for free. Or, you know, it could maybe be nothing to do with that sort of thing at all. It could be Michael O'Leary and Ryanair, who's decided that doesn't need aeroplanes anymore, just fly the whole country, lift it up, land somewhere relatively close to where you're meant to be. That's nothing unusual, that's what happens with Ryanair anyway. You never had an airport, yes. But maybe it's got nothing to do with politics, maybe it's got nothing to do with business at all. Perhaps the people who are controlling us are the Irish Rugby Football Union. And they're going to lift Ireland up and fly us down and land us in South Africa, where we will become the 10th state. Africa has 9 states. Now, one of them, oddly enough, is called the Free State, so we can't call ourselves that. But it has, the other 9 states, there are some beautiful names. I mean, Limpopo. Is that a beautiful name? Limpopo. And there's another one, what is it? I have it written down here. Mpumalanga. Just rolls off the tongue. Mpumalanga. Isn't that a beautiful place to live? What would we be? The Hokey Cokey. Yeah, Hokey Cokey land. That could be perfect. Yeah. So then just imagine what would happen. You'd have the Irish rugby team, the best of the Irish rugby team, and the best of the South African rugby team. And you'd be able to pool the players. And then you'd have a wonderful team, which would be the South African rugby team. So maybe it's nothing to do with sport. Maybe it's that genius on the West, Donald Trump. And what he's going to do, he's going to fly us over to California. And the reason he's flying us over to California, because he knows that Ireland is wet. And he figures that if he lands in Ireland or flies us over California, we'll put out all of the forest fires. Yeah, and it'll be the best, most amazing forest fire putting out ever happened anywhere in the world. Honestly, it'll be amazing. So
maybe we're just going to go up and up and up to the point where we're actually in space. We'll be the first drone planet ever. Now think about it, that's independence for you. You know, we'll be able to take the technology and sell it to Nicola Sturgeon. You know? 6 months later, there'll be a wee mini Scotland flying around us like a movie. You know? So, you know, we get up there, we're in space, and you know, to boldly blow where no man has gone before would be fantastic. The problem would be for our folk singers. You know, they would be really tearing their hair out. You know, could you imagine Ralph McTell? You know, it's a long, long way from Earth to here. Doesn't have the same ring as Claire, does it? Or Christy Moore. I wish I was back home in the Atlantic. You know, the other one is our man from Derry who wrote Ireland's Call. You know, well, that would be very useful when the drone's coming into land, because it wouldn't be Ireland's Call, the Ireland's Call sign for coming into land. You know. But anyway, you're a day closer, ladies and gentlemen, to the great exodus. So bear in mind now, anytime you go out of the house, pack an oxygen mask, pack a life jacket, and pack a parachute. Now, we may not know where we're going, but the one thing you can be certain is that, given that we're Irish, no matter where we land up, we'll just get there, get off, and we'll have a party. Thank you.
So to do what we've never done before, I haven't done this bit, I've done the workshop and evaluations, but not the test speaker. But I think what would be really interesting is if we try and do a group evaluation. So we'll have 1 more minute for you to capture your thoughts, and then let's see how we'll kind of take it forward and give one an evaluation from everybody. The first part would open with an overall perspective on the speech. Who'd like to give a sentence or two on their overall perspective on the speech?
Thank you very much, Donald. From my perspective, as soon as you started talking, I felt it was very much a case that what was coming to my mind was the film Up, that Disney or Pixar film where the house was lifted with that vivid array of balloons. And all of a sudden you had Ireland floating away, lifted by numerous propellers or wind turbines, which I happen to love to see on the landscape. Overall, I thought your start was really engaging. Anyone who opens it with a question automatically is engaging the audience, because what they're doing is they're turning around and everyone is saying, well, this is how I would answer that question. So it's always good to engage the audience that way. I could go on. Do you want me to go on?
No, we'll see.
I'll stop at that point.
Thank
But
you.
that's
Yeah,
where
we'll probably come
that was
back.
my engagement of it.
You get your overall perspective.
Just don't know, for me, I thought just started off, it was an intriguing start when you talk about the seatbelts, because you're kind of thinking, why would I need a seatbelt? That wasn't evident. And then you took us into this wonderful, crazy, mad adventure that was in some ways very bizarre, but in some other ways highlighted some of the real serious madness of the world that we live in, when you brought in some of the political context as well, and lots of other current affairs relating it to business. And so I really liked all of that, the Ryanair, the rugby and stuff like that. And I thought that you had great facial expressions, the menacing mood and stuff like that. I think, but I did notice that sometimes when you're thinking, you look at the wall to the left. I noticed that too, so...
We get to the
Yeah.
what can be improved. Okay, overall perspective?
Overall perspective, I thought that was an excellent speech, and I was on this journey from start to finish. I think you just captured the use of vivid language, descriptive language, and straight away you took us on this journey. And we're never quite sure where we were going, but it was entertaining, it had thrills, it had laughter, and I really enjoyed the whole experience. Enjoyed your body language, the propellers. I really felt your enthusiasm, really enthused others. We're all on this journey, and I think the use of language was brilliant, very, very descriptive. Your vocal variety was excellent, and you just captured everyone's imagination, and I was gripped, so thank you.
Okay, so what we're looking for is that bit where you start off with the overall perspective on the speech. So this was a really interesting, intriguing speech that captured our imagination from the first by the use of questions and made us wonder what was going on. So you're looking for that kind of concise, here's what this did, here's what this speech was about. That gives you your introduction to your evaluation. Yeah? And then moving on to some of the things that you liked. Okay, so we've already got some of the things that were liked. Who'd like to offer what they particularly liked?
Well, certainly your vocal variety was great in that there, because not only were you able to describe what was going on, what were you seeing in the landscape, then when we took off was an island and your voice changed, and then you used it as a good tool, descriptive tool, to add to the story.
That's a really good example. What else? Well, somebody else, what you liked?
There was good use of iteration. There was one example where I think he talked about putting pilots from somewhere beginning with a P in Russia. I don't know what, but there was bits and pieces like that which were very engaging.
So that's the description of it. So there was alliteration and it made it more engaging. So we're getting to the why it was done there. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Mike. Well,
Yeah.
so much for being a gentleman. In particular, I thought your hand movement was excellent, especially when you synced your hands with the speed of the propellers as they're going round. And actually, then your hands actually travelled as if they were going up. Your hand movement in that scene was actually very, very good and very appropriate for what you were speaking at. And it really matched what was coming from your mouth, basically.
Yeah, that actually kind of flows really well as to the point I wanted to make as well. I thought that your entire body language was fantastic. And you know, for someone who's actually not native, that body language really helped me to understand the story. And even if there was like a word or two that I didn't know, I knew what was happening in the story. So I thought that really kind of like enhanced your whole speech.
Yeah, there were a few things that I really liked about it. One was the fact that it really got into your imagination. I had myself trying to view the world from being up there and looking down. I also had myself living in the Maldives, albeit for about 3 seconds, which I thought was really good. And then what was the other? I had a second point on it.
That's okay. Yeah, that's all right. Anybody else would add something that they really
One
liked?
more, I suppose, just to expand on what Julie has already said. I really felt that you took everybody in this room on that adventure with you, so we were all there, which was really good.
I also really liked your use of language, and particularly whenever you were looking at the South African provinces and states, and you were able to say the states with such flair and such imagination, and it was just very, very clear, and just really, I forget what the states were pronounced as, but it really caught my imagination of how articulate you were able to let you across your points.
The second point I wanted to make was that I got a real strong sense of scale through your body language in terms of the numbers and where all these wind turbines are located, and the fact that they are so big, so that really came across.
Okay. So what would be an improvement? What would you like to see more of or less of? This is the bit where we get to evaluate it. Yes.
The thing that I think could have been improved, was the examples of the songs. It seemed a wee bit broken to me there, and lost your flow for that 10 or 15 seconds that you were giving the examples of the songs. The other one was a big one for me, was when you actually had to go back over and look at the notes. And you know what I'm like with the notes, because once you've done that, the audience start to disengage from it then, because we've lost the contact with you. And then it's up to you to work to get them back. They were the two sort of big things that stepped out for me.
And the only thing I said earlier, started to say earlier, was a bit too soon. Jonah, was I did notice when you're thinking, occasionally you just glance to the wall, and I think it's something we all do, because I know I do that when I'm thinking. So, but it's just something I'm supposed to be conscious of.
Can
can I just say the imagery was great in terms of windmill and the seatbelt. I actually was physically shaking and I had the seatbelt on, so that was really great. But there was something within your speech, and I've seen a few of your speeches and they're amazing, but there was something that made me feel a wee bit agitated for some reason. And I was like, what was making me feel really agitated here? And there was a couple of things. Mentioned the DUP and Russia, and I felt that I couldn't quite follow you. I felt a wee bit confused about something. I'm not I don't really understand what it was that was going on there for me. I'm not sure if I maybe lost focus a bit. And I'm wondering, was it because maybe you were looking over towards your notes on a few occasions? Is that where I lost my train of thought and maybe lost you a bit? So maybe it's the not bringing up maybe some political things there, even though I don't particularly follow them, but it felt like me had lost me there a bit, and maybe not looking over towards the notes would keep me focused.
So can I do something just now? So that was a really, really good point. But partly what you did there was you started to hedge it a wee bit, you made it yours. Maybe I lost focus, maybe yeah. Donald was delivering the speech. And there was a part, so I'll add my wee bit, there was a part where I got a bit frantic. And I got a bit frantic when it was the DUP. And so you're absolutely right, you lost focus and you lost connection with it because it felt too much. Say it. You were saying it and then you were kind of taking it back. Yeah?
Because I was a bit afraid, and it was like, because I know how such a good speaker.
Okay.
I felt bad.
Okay. So we're absolutely getting it right now. Okay, that's well done and thank you. Yeah, but that was it. So what you were feeling was disconnected at that point. It doesn't mean that Donald's not a good speaker. It doesn't mean that we weren't entertained. It doesn't mean that it wasn't, a really good speech. But at that point, you lost focus. He lost your focus. And you need to tell him that. Whereas what you were doing was kind of saying, but maybe it was me, and maybe it was because you were looking at the wall, because it's not because you could have done anything wrong. Don't for a minute imagine that you did something that wasn't good. Yeah?
Yeah.
Can we identify with that? Is that all right? Don't mind me.
No, I totally agree because... Yeah.
And what happened then is that you said more than you needed to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could feel it as well.
Yeah.
And you couldn't work out how to finish it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a really good example of where we just need to say what we've got to say. You lost me there, and that bit in the middle, because you were saying, I'm not sure why. I need to find out why. It's my job to find out why, because I can't tell you unless I give you a really good reason why. Yeah?
Yeah.
You just give your feedback. You lost me there in the middle. My word would be, I would be saying to Don, got a bit frantic there for a bit. Yeah. Because quite often when we're delivering a speech, our strengths are also our weaknesses. So there was a bit where, it was up high and it was really exciting, and then it kept going for just a wee bit too long. Yeah, and it would have lost. Did anybody else feel it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never got feedback before, so I was the same, but what I've just sort of realised, I think it was because I felt that as well, and I don't know if this is right to say this, but I think it was because the story was very, you were using your imagination and creating your own mind, and then whenever it spoke up, like the politics, whatever, it brought you back to real life. So you were jumping in between real life and imaginative, if you know what I mean. So I think that's where I got.
So that is a really excellent observation. Yeah, that there was a tension there, that we were being taken on an imaginative, creative, wonderful journey where we were all up here and we were going to the Maldives and we were all over the place. And then we got the image of the DUP, thanks very much, and Russia, and yeah. So it wasn't, that bit wasn't funny. And that's fine. No, it's okay. It's okay. Okay, can we take a poll now? I know I'm being drastic. You're okay with this, Don?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Who didn't find that bit funny? Okay. The majority of the room.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I didn't find it funny, but I did find, I suppose a lot of your speech was very funny, but I did find it, a lot of that very true, and sometimes when you bring those current affairs in, it can be quite interesting. And that's what I meant earlier, where like that's the madness of the real world. But I do think you should maybe be careful to get the balance with that.
But you see, that was a brave thing that you shared that. And you said, I haven't done evaluation before, and maybe it's just me, and maybe I didn't get it right. And that was why I wanted to show you that actually you were representing views of probably 2/3 of the room.
Can I just say, I actually did find it funny, that's not.
No, 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 you see. Here's a piece of feedback. Can I take it back really, really quickly, just in case you're going to be offended?
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to learn why am I actually, it's important I think the person knows
You
what
made
I can
it,
say as
yeah,
well.
but yeah.
Yeah.
But the way that they know what you're going to say is if you say it, not hedge it. You hedged a bit and you hedged a bit. And yet what you both had to offer was really, really crucial stuff. Yeah. That in the middle of this imaginative journey where we were way off whirring up there in the world and having a great old time, there were bits that were creating a bit of attention. If we don't share that with Don, if he was going to do that speech again, because it's a speech he could do again, he needs to know that bit. I lost the wee bit in the middle. Isn't that such a really, that's a gift. Feedback is a gift. There you've given him a gift that says, when you do that one again, watch for that bit. Look at what you do now. Do it slightly differently. Yeah? So, huge value.
Yeah, sorry, I suppose this is where like perspective comes in, because I actually found those little bits really funny. And I would actually, if I was to evaluate Donna's speech, I would actually say I would encourage you to include them, because because I have like a wee section here in my notes saying humour, and then within that I've written Brexit, Boris Johnson, Ryanair, DUP, right? So then to me that actually made the speech a lot more relatable and like really current.
Yeah. But that was that overall theme there, of that funny theme. What was happening here was picking out one or two bits that just jarred a wee bit. So the theme can still be there, the overall thing can be there, but the little bits that jar, it's really good to tell somebody that there's a little bit that jarred. Yeah? Please.
Certainly from my perspective, it's strange because I have spent a lifetime sitting on the fence being in the fire service as it was. Whenever anyone talks politics, you're always a wee bit uneasy. As much for the person and as much that nobody else is involved. I think it was Emma that actually said, I was anxious at that point. And what I did notice was that your speech did clear up, or did speed up quite significantly at that point. That speech, you could have said 95% of it if you just lifted out the little bit about Northern Ireland, and you could talk about Brexit, you could talk about the South, you could talk about anywhere else. Just don't talk about politics in Northern Ireland in that speech. There was no need for it in that speech anyway. You could have lifted out the DUP or that, but anything else was good to go. But I would have just left out, in the context of Northern Ireland, that one aspect.
So to some extent, by me pushing it there, we got to some really, really good feedback that you mightn't have got otherwise. Yeah.
But it was funny.
Let's say, so what we need to remember is that the overall message, that this was an entertaining, interesting speech that took us on a magical journey. Yeah? That's all still true. That doesn't stop being true. Yeah? I really liked it. Maybe, just maybe. I thought that was really good. That was a great way of bringing, because it fired our imagination. We're with you. Maybe, just maybe. All of these sorts of things. So there's really good stuff in there. But you can see how. What's the most valuable thing for you, Donald, from what's been said?
For me, so far, I know what everybody said, the speech quickened up at that point. It actually should have slowed down at that point, because to be honest with you, I was doing the speech again, I would put the DUP in it again, because that is hilarious. Not because it's the DUP, because of the whole farce with Ian and his holidays. The humour was about the holiday. It wasn't about the DUP in general. It was about Ian, and I'm thinking, oh God, here we go, Ian's at it again. And I mean, that's a standard joke in Northern Ireland now. So I don't think it was offensive to anybody. I'm putting it bluntly, if it was offensive, I don't care. Comedy's about that. Comedy is hard. It's sharp. But I would have slowed it down. I should have slowed it down. And actually, when I did that speech came in there at something like 6 minutes 40. Yeah. When I did it today, it was coming in at 7:40. So I quickened up a full minute. Yeah.
Okay. So what's really useful there then is hearing that when people get feedback, they can choose what they're going to do with it. That's the thing, is that you can give somebody feedback. It doesn't mean that they're insulted, that they're going to go and hide in a corner, put themselves under the table and never come out and do another speech. They're going to say, that's a bit I'm holding on to, because actually that works for me, but it's good to know some of that other stuff. It reflects what I was thinking.
I just wanted to say, because it made me think then about how useful the feedback is for everyone, because I know like, quite a few people felt uncomfortable with some of that comment around the DUP, and I know I did a speech recently, a humour speech, and I mentioned a political thing in that too. But I would actually take the feedback a different way than you have, Donal. I would think I wouldn't do that now because it was so many people. But even though a lot of people find it funny, I wouldn't want to. You know.
And again, there you go. You see, that's
So
the whole
take it a
thing
different
about
way,
remembering
yeah,
that
we're
your
very
feedback, your evaluation is something that somebody can take and choose what they will do with it. When if it feels like that part is integral to the speech, then I'm keeping it. But actually, if I slow it down, it might have more impact. For you, actually, I'm leaving that.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask a question, and whether anyone else felt this, but at the beginning when Donal asked the question about seatbelts, for the next minute until I realised that we were going up in the air, I was wondering
Me
what
too.
the seatbelts
Me
about.
too. Yeah.
I haven't made that connection, and that, to me, it might have brought people along if you had said something like, put your seatbelts on, we're going on a journey, or put your seatbelts on, we're going on a trip.
Really useful one. Okay, that's fine.
One of the things that I would probably recommend would be not actually to have notes on the lantern, because if notes are there, you have a tendency to go over and look at them. And I think there was times in that speech where I felt that you were losing it a wee bit and you had to go over and almost read the notes. Or if you didn't have those notes there, that wouldn't be an option, so you could deliver it more naturally to a certain extent. That's something that maybe you could bear in mind. Just
So let's, I'm very conscious of time. So what's, who would like to give a conclusion to the evaluation? What would be the kind of 2 or 3 sentences to sum up the speech? Anybody who hasn't spoken first? Lovely, thank you.
I would say it was a very original and out there, crazy speech. It was going all over the place. Some of the links, I didn't know whether which direction you were headed. One minute you were South Africa, the next minute you were somewhere else. But I thought I actually found the political humour very, very original and very funny. I loved the reference to Nicola Sturgeon, and I always loved the Free State, the Northern Irish humour as well. So I thought that was first class. And overall, I would say the main point is that it's very original.
It was a great humorous speech, but what I have here is that I found it too busy in parts of it. So that's all.
Okay. So I think we'll do that as our conclusion. We would say that it was an entertaining, engaging speech that took us on a really good journey, and there were a couple of points but maybe where it got a bit too busy, and that slowing it down or pacing it in a different way would help for the next time. So does that feel like a fair summary of what we had to say? Okay. So in terms of doing that evaluation after what I said earlier, was it different for any of you? Was your thinking different? Tell me I did something good tonight. Come on.
So more structure to it. I think there's a bit of structure and insight. You know, you're really sort of trying to be a bit more specific, and maybe the advice is easier to absorb sometimes. I can listen to an evaluation and it kind of fluctuates. It goes a little bit off piece, right? It's like, oh, we're going this one right now. We'll come back round. But it does give a good bit of structure to it, and it's very relevant as well.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anything different?
I love this.
Okay. Don't look at your.
I do.
You're a mind map girl.
I love that. Yeah, and I love that much more than that, and that's probably the way I would have done it before. I really love that. Yeah.
Good. Okay. You see what works for you. Anything else that was different when you were thinking?
Yeah, I think what struck me about tonight is that I can have a thought, but the likelihood there was in the room who had that same thought. And I think I would have held back from even saying that.
Okay, thank you. I think that's the real thing I want to get to, is that whatever you're thinking has value. Yeah. And if you were standing up here and doing the evaluation and you would find it hard to say it, remember it still has, that's why I have the follow-up bit, that you might go back up to Donal afterwards and say, I couldn't quite work out what I wanted to say to you about that, but here. Yeah. So remember the huge value that you're offering somebody when you're doing it, and just how good it is to be able to do it. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so we'll wrap up there for me. Thanks very much.